Tonight, Ukraine's biggest fight yet, fresh assaults on the capital. A missile fired into apartments, civilians killed, Russia accused of war crimes. The city's getting ready for battle, training and trenches, teachers take up arms, locals queue to fight or head for shelter. Flood emergency, homes destroyed, some swept away, lives lost. Now a major warning for New South Wales as the system crosses the border. Rod Marsh in the fight of his life, an update from his family, the cricket legend in a coma. Beijing's bad timing slammed over war games as the deadly battle rages in Europe. And is this the start of a Red V revival? The Dragons turn it on in Mudgee to snap a decade-long hoodoo in the Charity Shield.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. We begin tonight with extraordinary scenes in the battle for Ukraine. In devastating explosions, the Russians have blown up a gas pipeline and oil depot, but they have met major resistance with convoys destroyed and the Ukrainians keeping Russia at bay for another night. World support is growing with major new sanctions. Chris Reason begins our coverage.
And after all the promises civilian targets wouldn't be hit, this on a residential apartment block. The speed and fury of a guided missile on a Saturday afternoon. It took out 5 floors of the 22-storey building. 2 people killed, 4 injured. The Russians denied responsibility. Ukraine called them war criminals.
We managed to escape. We were in the kitchen. We were lucky. It was a direct hit into the living room. My wife and elder child have their legs broken.
The terror of sitting in your apartment and the walls implode and the world goes black. The force of the explosion has thrown debris across the road and into buildings opposite, where locals tell me they'd just emerged from bomb shelters where they'd spent the night, and seconds later the sirens began again and the missile struck. For this man living opposite, my child is 8 years old, he said, and he'll be scarred by this for the rest of his life. Like this paramedic being treated after his ambulance is left a flaming wreck, and this horrific dash cam. A roadblock by Russian troops who pull a couple out of the car and beat them senseless. The sound of gunfire. We do not know what happened to them and what could have happened here in a kindergarten playground. An unexploded missile, death and misery frozen. The terror of this war can visit you at any moment. Here a Ukraine jet tears through the air, skimming the ground. And over normally quiet countryside, a Stinger missile brings down a chopper, like so much of this war, shot by a phone. A mushroom cloud ignites the night sky as the Russians blow up a gas pipeline. Through the night, explosions and gunfire have rung out across Kiev and outlying areas. In Vasilkiv, an oil depot has exploded, the mayor telling residents, "We will withstand, God is with us." The battle taken to the streets and watched from a block of flats. Defiance and resilience is everywhere. Here, dozens of women and children gather in a park for a cocktail party, making Molotov cocktails, homemade grenades, simple, lethal. They're taking down far bigger targets too, entire convoys. The Ukrainians say they did this to the Russians. While it's not stopped the enemy, it has slowed the bully of Europe. In the country's northeast, that meant standing in front of advancing Russian tanks. And in the country's south, more courage. An elderly man confronts fully armed Russian soldiers. He says, "This is my country. Don't you have problems in your own country?" Ukraine's exhausted president posted this video from the heart of Kiev, saying his country is fighting back. Responding to reports Washington had offered to get him out of the country, he said he wants ammunition, not a lift. There's a curfew here, the police and military arresting people on the streets. Men put up against walls, lockdown Kiev style. Heavyweight boxer Vladimir Klitschko demands all citizens rise up.
You need to act now to stop Russian aggression.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says they don't want to occupy Ukraine. His message rolled out as the tanks rolled in, a trainload of pain on the way from Belarus. But from New York, the United Nations united except for Russia, a minority of one. Unsurprisingly, Moscow vetoed the UN's condemnation of Putin's war. Surprisingly, China abstained, not supporting its new supposed friend, Russia. Significant on the world stage.
Last night was the most horrific for Kiev since, just imagine, 1941, when it was attacked by Nazis.
Russia will pay.
The US president talking up sanctions.
You have two options. Start a third world war, go to war with Russia physically, or two, make sure that a country that acts so contrary to international law ends up paying a price for having done it.
Turkey has now moved to ban Russian warships from the Black Sea, and France intercepted this freighter in the English Channel bound for Russia.
We've got to do everything we can to change the heavy odds that Ukraine faces and to help them. And so that's why we're sending humanitarian supplies, we're sending financial supplies and military supplies.
Other European leaders have shamed countries for not doing enough, like Germany, only sending helmets.
5,000 helmets? This must be a joke.
They later sent missiles. And this is what they're seeing on Russian TV, described as crossing into disputed territory, a dispute Ukraine will fight to the death.
Live to Chris Reason in the Ukrainian capital now. Chris, the Russians have been held off yet again.
Yeah, well, Mark, right here, right now, where we are, we heard a couple of loud explosions about half an hour ago, but it is, as you can see, relatively quiet. The expected aerial blitz and surge assault on the capital, Kiev, overnight just didn't eventuate. The Russians are making some progress in Ukraine's second biggest city, Kharkiv, but look, Ukraine is managing to hold on here. Despite its relatively small size and what it lacks in military capability, it makes up for in sheer determination. And apparently, reportedly, that is driving the Russian President Vladimir Putin to extreme anger. He is asking questions. Some good news tonight as well, Mark, on those 13 border force guards that were apparently massacred on Snake Island by that Russian warship. Well, they might well have survived. Mark?
Chris Reason in the Ukrainian capital, thank you. Live now to Jeff Parry in Lviv. Jeff, locals there are taking shelter wherever they can.
That's right, Mark, in homes, basements, underground car parks, air raid shelters if they can get to them. There are curfews all across this country. As missiles rain down on some cities, the others are awaiting their turn. People are desperate, they're leaving their homes and country any way they can, and it's leading to some distressing scenes.
For thousands of Ukrainians, this is the new daily routine. In Lviv, families and the family dog file into an air raid shelter, walking down to safety. Nights they could not have imagined even a week ago. Here they huddle and wait, while above, a warning to stay inside and shield from any Russian missiles as the army patrols the city. There are long queues to join them, hundreds of civilians signing up as soldiers. Queues too at supermarkets, where some shelves are stripped bare.
These people are lining up at an ATM. It's a long wait, but they're prepared to do it because they need the cash for the uncertain times ahead.
In the precious non-curfewed hours of daylight, Ukrainians leave their homes. More than 150,000 have crossed into neighbouring countries, half to Poland. The rest to Hungary, Romania, Moldova and Slovakia, to safety, and where relatives are waiting. Vladimiir's mother was in the line to cross for 10 hours.
And what about your father? Is he going to leave?
His father is 57, just inside the age of conscription.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not.
Ukrainians are resilient and many want to fight for their country. Stories emerging of parents leaving their children with relatives at border crossings and turning back to take up arms. Julia was a teacher. Now she's a soldier. deployed to fight Russian troops around Kiev.
Do you know how to use the gun?
No, a little bit. We started to teach 2 days ago. It's not awful. Wow. It's awful.
Volunteers in other cities also getting ready for battle.
We're going to protect our land. We're strong.
Russian tanks are still 200 kilometres away, but they're digging trenches, ready for the expected assault. The feeling among these men, they will defend their city to the end. But in the nation's darkest hours, signs of new life. Babies born in bomb shelters. Born beneath a city where it's hoped they will grow up free. Jeff Parry, 7 News.
4 days in, Russia's hopes of a quick victory have not materialised, but troops are advancing. Intense fighting is underway across several major cities. Mike Amor explains.
Europe's most significant ground conflict since World War II is escalating by the hour as Ukrainian forces fight hard to hold the capital, Kiev, which remains Russia's prime target. More than 150,000 Russian troops are now understood to be in Ukraine, with attack lines into 2 other cities, Kharkiv in the northeast and Kherson in the south. Kherson is also crucial in this war because the city has a port on the Black Sea connecting the Mediterranean, which opens up to the world. Now, this port is seen as extremely valuable to President Putin because, unlike Russia's northern coast, which freezes for many months each year, Kherson is open for trade all year round. It's hard to get confirmed figures, but casualty numbers are rising. Russian forces have killed at least 198 people, including 3 children. More than 1,100 are wounded. 33 of those are children. While Reuters is reporting up to 3,500 Russian soldiers have been killed or injured in the conflict so far. Ukraine's army says it's destroyed 14 Russian aircraft, 8 helicopters, and more than 100 tanks.
Australia will join a growing list of countries funding the supply of weapons to the Ukrainian government. Scott Morrison announcing a significant step up in support just days after saying only non-lethal aid would be provided.
We'll be seeking to provide whatever support we can for lethal aid through our NATO partners, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom.
The Prime Minister also confirmed the federal government will fast-track Ukrainian visa applications. Western countries continue to respond with sanctions designed to cripple the Russian economy. In an unprecedented move, the Allies have targeted key banks, completely isolating them from the rest of the world.
From New Delhi to New York, London to Paris.
Putin terrorist! Putin terrorist!
A growing worldwide chorus calling for Russia to back down. In St. Petersburg, Russian police continue to detain protesters voicing their opposition. The US, UK, Canada and Europe responding with further financial hits.
The European Union and its partners are working to cripple Putin's ability to finance his war machine,
including banning Russian banks from SWIFT, the world's main international payments network.
Effectively block Russian exports and imports.
We've got to act together and we've got to do more.
After rockets wiped out internet to parts of Ukraine, tech billionaire Elon Musk responded personally to a plea for action, tweeting, "Starlink service is now active in Ukraine. More terminals en route. The SpaceX company's satellites now in place to restore vital communications."
Roman Abramovich, the owner of Chelsea since 2003, is stepping away.
The Russian billionaire caving to the international pressure, handing over control of the club to its charitable foundation. A push now to exile the oligarch from living in Britain because of links to Russian officials, including Vladimir Putin. Recently retired Ukrainian tennis star Sergei Stakhovsky is leaving the tennis circuit, returning home to take up arms.
Basically, everybody who's motivated enough can join.
And from NBC studios in New York, Saturday Night Live shelved its opening comedy monologue, replacing it with a show of solidarity in song. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Donald Trump has weighed in on the response to Russia's invasion. He took aim at the man who replaced him while praising Vladimir Putin, calling him a smart man. Let's go live to US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney now. Ash, opinions may be split on America's response, but the latest sanctions are hitting hard.
Mark, these latest sanctions are hitting hard. If Vladimir Putin was planning to drive a wedge through NATO, this may prove a major miscalculation. America and its allies have announced today millions of dollars worth of more weapons to be sent to Ukraine. But here on the home soil, America's bitter political divisions have once again been laid bare.
We are praying for the proud people of Ukraine. God bless them all. God bless them all.
The former president tells a Conservative conference in Florida Ukraine is a horrific disaster.
A major war in Europe may very well erupt.
And defends earlier comments in which he called Russia's Vladimir Putin a genius.
Of course he's smart, but the real problem is that our leaders are dumb. Dumb. So dumb.
I put as much stock in Trump saying that Putin's a genius as I do when he called himself a stable genius.
President Biden defends the West's sanctions against Russia as
the broadest sanctions in history.
Targeting Putin personally, his cronies and banking system. Today, the US announcing more military aid for Ukraine too. $350 million worth of anti-aircraft and anti-tank weaponry, body armour and munitions. Soon after, Germany reversed a long-standing policy not to export deadly weapons to conflict zones, agreeing to send 1,000 anti-tank weapons and 500 Stinger surface-to-air missiles as quickly as possible.
The one thing I think that Putin thought he could do was split NATO, creating a great aperture for him to be able to walk through.
Donald Trump using his keynote address to mock the sanctions as weak.
Putin is playing Biden like a drum.
And argue, had he still been in the White House, Putin wouldn't dare attack Ukraine.
He understood me, and he understood that I didn't play games. This would not have happened.
In Washington, D.C., Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
A severe weather warning is in place for northern New South Wales this evening, with heavy rain and fears of life-threatening flash flooding. Bill Hogan is in Lismore, which is in the firing line. Bill, there are already concerns for a man feared missing.
Yeah, there are, Mark. A short time ago, we had a release from police media saying that they have been searching for a man at Brewster Street, just behind me here. They say that they heard him screaming. They saw him walking in floodwaters before he simply disappeared. It's believed he may have been sucked into a storm drain. Now, that search has since been suspended due to the dangers of the floodwaters, and it will resume at first light tomorrow, but they haven't found him tonight, so it's hoped that tomorrow will renew the search. But it's simply, the situation here is getting worse in Lismore. We have just received an alert from the SES for any low-lying homes around the CBD to prepare to evacuate tonight. Now, tomorrow morning at about 11 a.m. is when the Wilsons River will reach its peak, well above the 10.7 metre level of the levee. Now, businesses are bracing for a similar impact to what they saw in the 2017 emergency, but authorities are hoping that it won't be as severe.
We could, worst case, see an overtopping of the levee at about midday tomorrow. We've already issued evacuation warnings, and that's just to prepare people.
There is also the potential for this system to continue travelling all the way down to the southern parts of the state. The Bureau is currently monitoring this situation actively.
Now, around 150 to 200 mils of rain is expected to fall overnight, and damaging winds are expected to arrive here tomorrow as that weather system up north moves south of the border, but north of the border today, it wreaked havoc.
Fierce and in parts plain frightening, Brisbane River is absolutely raging.
The boat here, that's broken free now. There's trees here, there's a pontoon here. Have a look at the debris massed up the river. This is what's just coming down.
Everything is getting crunched, piling up or sinking to the bottom. Everyone who saw this couldn't believe no one was killed.
Oh no.
This houseboat filmed floating out of control. Its owner, a man in his 70s, is on board.
Jump off. Is he going to jump off?
The impact, the force is incredible.
Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up!
His home disappearing into the depths at Kangaroo Point. He was pulled from peril half a kilometre away.
We are in a very dangerous and life-threatening situation.
6 people have now died drowning in this disaster, which is why authorities are taking no risks, evacuating residents from flood-prone suburbs if they haven't already done so themselves.
We're going now before we have to be taken out.
There are so many streets just like this where the drains can't cope and there's nowhere for the water to run.
We'll probably end up with another metre and a half of water. We're just hopeful that it doesn't go up to floor level.
History warned locals it was going to get deep.
I think a lot of people, as you said, did get caught off guard.
In some streets, it's not just water doing the damage. Across Brisbane, it's expected 1,400 homes will end up with water over the floorboards.
I'm expecting water will be above my head height under here by late this afternoon or sometime tomorrow.
The first peak is expected at 8 p.m, and because Brisbane River is tidal, it'll happen 2 more times in the next 24 hours.
As the high tides come in, we see inundations start to happen.
Adding to that, the huge spill from the Wivenhoe, Brisbane's biggest water source at 165% capacity. It's feeding their biggest river system, which is linked to the Bremer, which is now flooding Ipswich.
We have 2 SES boats here who are going out doing those rescues and evacuations, and the SES have been 24/7.
At Gympie, north of Noosa, this flood is officially their worst in over a century. 650 homes and businesses are damaged or underwater.
We are focusing on resupply, we are focusing on infrastructure, power, water. There are issues with that in that area and we are working through those.
West in the Lockyer Valley, Grantham is no better off.
There's no way you get across there. And the water goes as far as the eye can see.
The setting of one remarkable rescue where this man, Leo, was pulled from the rapids by a stranger.
There was times when I thought he was gone completely. He was under the water for some seconds before he would resurface.
The cause of it all, the catastrophic rain, the threat, edging slowly into New South Wales, where everyone's hopeful we don't cop it as bad as Queensland. Tom Hartley, 7 News.
With more weather details, Angie is here now. Ange, what's the latest?
Mark, so much rain has fallen already, but incredibly, there's still so much more to come. This is a bird's eye view of the system that's moving down from Queensland. Already, in excess of 200 millimetres has fallen in northeastern New South Wales. Right now, the warning zone has even extended south to include the mid-north coast and west to take in the northern tablelands as well. Localised intense rainfall and storms tonight could exceed 250 millimetres in parts. It is all linked to a low pressure system sitting off the southeast Queensland coastline here. That's tracking towards our state now and will deepen tomorrow. Sydney enjoyed a reprieve today, but the wet weather will pick up again tonight, kicking off another very soggy week. 50 millimetres plus in the city, lots of rain all across New South Wales. Details soon, Mark.
OK, Angie, thank you. Sydney's trains finally back on track after the break. The changes in time for the working week, but the union dispute rages on. The CBD comes alive why tomorrow will mark a new beginning post-pandemic. Help for home buyers extended, what you'll need to get your foot in the door, that's later. A sweet treat inside a chocolate factory for a special anniversary. And how a driver walked away from a tumble into a stormwater drain. Welcome back. Following last week's rail disruption, trains across Sydney will return to a regular weekday timetable from tomorrow morning. There'll be close to 3,000 services a day across the network. That's 3 times the number of trains that were running last week. Talks between Sydney Trains and the rail union over industrial action remain ongoing, but we're being told contingency planning is in place. We've been provided an update on cricket legend Rod Marsh, who suffered a major heart attack. The 74-year-old, one of Australia's greatest wicketkeepers, remains in Bundaberg Hospital since having the heart attack on Friday. His family issued a statement today saying Rod is currently in the fight of his life and remains in an induced coma in a critical condition. The family has promised updates but has asked for privacy. With the mask mandate now scrapped in most settings, office workers are expected to return across much of Sydney tomorrow, especially in the CBD. The big change, welcome news for many businesses and their employees, but it might be local cafes and restaurants set to benefit most.
Welcome to the city's green light district.
Westpac is among those reopening corporate Sydney tomorrow. Just opposite are two derelict cafes, barren, dirty inside, one telling customers they will be back June 28 last year. They didn't make it.
As people return to work, that's incredibly important, and that will spur economic activity and jobs in our cities.
The pandemic has seen $200 billion stockpiled in Australians' bank accounts. A return to work would shake plenty of it back into the economy, with spending on hospitality, transport, retail.
We want to see people back at work, back out and about, and of course we want to see them spending. We need them every time they spend $1 in a store, they give somebody a job.
Preemptive back-to-work spending is already happening. Mastercard data shows January retail sales up 14.5% on 2 years ago, while clothing sales jumped 20% on pre-pandemic levels. Spending on beauty products is also up.
Reinvigorating the state's economy goes, of course, well beyond inviting Sydney-siders back to Sydney. It's also about inviting the world to Sydney too. It's just on a week now since our international borders were reopened.
Early signs are encouraging.
The travel distribution systems overseas, they report 35 and 75% increases in inquiry.
But tourism and hospitality is reliant on working tourists themselves. It's estimated that will take more than a year to rebuild. Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
China watching as war rages in Europe. Up next, Australia urged to pay attention. Beijing accused of capitalising on atrocities in Ukraine. A powerful message from half a world away, Sydney's support for a battling nation. Tunnel collision caught on camera, what sparked the chaos.
And ahead in sport, the Aussies touched down under armed guard for their historic tour of Pakistan.
Welcome back. A driver has managed to walk away with only minor injuries after crashing his car into a stormwater drain at Auburn. He lost control of the vehicle around 5 a.m, hitting a pole, then a fence and tumbling into the drain. Police and paramedics responded, but the driver managed to get himself out of the vehicle and was taken to hospital in a stable condition. As the world watches the terror unfolding in Ukraine, support was on show across Sydney today. Some protested, others prayed, with plenty of people here worried about loved ones now trapped in a war zone.
In defiance they stand.
Stop Russia now!
Calling for weapons, soldiers, more sanctions. Hoping their voices carry.
No war, no, please, no war, no war. I'm very, emotional.
A community feeling the weight of war, fearing the worst for friends and family.
I don't know if I'll see my parents again. It's very hard.
Coming together at St Andrew's Ukrainian Church in Lidcombe. Leaders lighting a flame in the hope faith will help.
No shells, no bullets, no tyrants can silence faith.
Praying for Ukraine, survive.
99-year-old Klava Jasenko, who, like many here, has survived cold conflict before.
And we thought all of this was gone, like left behind, and now it's resurrected again.
In the congregation, there were pleas for more aid.
Solidarity is when you sacrifice and not just say empty words.
At St Mary's Cathedral too.
Millions of people will be displaced, and it is to be hoped that nations like our own will be generous in receiving the refugees.
The Premier already putting his hand up.
I'm in discussions with the Prime Minister. Whatever support we can provide, as we have in the past, New South Wales will do.
Ukrainian Australians today channeling a very long struggle for independence. They say they will be here every day. Many have told us they're the lucky ones, so very lucky to live here.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to live here with my family.
Serena Andaloro, 7 News.
With war raging in Europe, security experts say the West can't afford to take its eyes off the Indo-Pacific. The warning comes as Scott Morrison questioned the timing of a new round of Chinese military drills in the region.
Wargaming in the South China Sea. Beijing flexing its military muscle again. announcing more drills in the contested waters from today until Tuesday, setting up a 6 nautical mile exclusion zone.
The focus of any tests and operations in the South China Sea would be on seizing islands.
Experts warning President Xi Jinping is closely watching what's happening in Europe.
If the West's response to this is not strong and decisive, then Xi may decide that he can accelerate his plans for Taiwan.
While he doesn't believe that'll happen, Scott Morrison can't ignore the timing.
I am concerned, though, that at a time when we're seeing aggression from Russia, that China thinks this is an appropriate time to be conducting those sorts of operations.
North Korea also showing its teeth, test firing a suspected ballistic missile towards the Sea of Japan. With global hostilities heightened, Labor's accusing the Morrison government of not doing enough to address what's been described as a dangerous oversight in our underwater defences.
We clearly have a capability gap between the end of the life of the Collins and the earliest arrival of any nuclear-propelled submarine.
The government arguing if it hadn't upped defence spending, AUKUS wouldn't have even been an option.
We would not have been a credible enough partner to enter into those deeper military ties.
Rob Scott, 7 News.
Terrifying video has emerged of the moment a truck crashed into 2 other heavy vehicles inside the NorthConnex tunnel last week. The first driver skidded on a large oil spill and was forced to pull over. Another truck came tearing through out of control. One driver was taken to hospital. Much needed help to buy your own home. Just ahead, who'll benefit most and how long the offer will last. Mozzie danger, the virus that sparked a health warning in our state. A tasty trip back in time as an Aussie institution turns 100.
Soon in sport, the Dragons send a clear message to the rest of the NRL in the Charity Shield.
And warnings are in place for much of New South Wales tonight as we brace for more flooding rain. An update soon.
Welcome back. New South Wales Health has issued a warning for people to protect themselves from mosquito bites. It comes after samples of the Japanese encephalitis virus was detected in 5 pig farms across the state. The cases have been found in southern and western New South Wales. People are being urged to cover up as much as possible. A key housing scheme could be extended as preparations for the pre-election budget get underway. The program allows single parents to buy a house with just a 2% deposit and has been more popular than first expected.
40-year-old Shivani is a single mum who never thought she'd be able to buy a home.
I did save, but wasn't enough.
After watching the news, Shivani found out about the Morrison government's family home guarantee. She called her bank the next day.
The process started in August and I moved into this property in November.
The Federal Housing Minister, Michael Sukkar, surprised Shivani with a visit.
I thought I might bring a little something for you too.
Mum and son couldn't be happier.
Finally, we have some place to call home.
They're one of more than 2,000 Australians who've benefited from the scheme, which allows single parents to buy a house with just a 2% deposit.
A single parent can end up owning their own home and paying less in mortgage repayments than they're paying in rent.
10,000 spots were announced late last year. More than 2,000 have already been claimed, 85% by single mums aged between 35 and 50.
Proven to be very popular. Our hope is we can grow the scheme, and we think we will.
Finance Minister Simon Birmingham says home ownership is key to a stable retirement.
Home ownership is not just about the here and now, it's about the long term. And we have achieved that growth through innovative programs.
7 News understands discussions are underway to extend the family home guarantee in next month's budget, giving more parents access to the program.
That's a matter that we will work through over the next few weeks, and budget details will be announced on budget night.
Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
It's the Aussie favourite found in many pantries or fridges. Next, Cadbury chocolate notches up 100 years. Why it's more than just a chocolate bar to plenty of Australians, and find out which state consumes the most. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Mel is here with Sport. Mel, heavy security for Australia in Pakistan.
Yeah, that's right, Fergo. That's an understatement. In fact, thousands of police officers are at the team hotel for the Aussies' historic tour of Pakistan. We'll hear from Pat Cummins next. Plus, the Dragons snap a 10-year hoodoo in the Charity Shield, turning on the style against the Rabbitohs. And the raging bull, Rafa Nadal's incredible start to the year, continues in Mexico. Welcome back. Former South Sydney captain Adam Reynolds says he'll be fit to lead the Broncos in their round one clash against the Rabbitohs. Reynolds' old club missed him last night, beaten 16-10 in the Charity Shield by a dazzling Dragons outfit.
Mudgee turned out to host a fifth Charity Shield, respects paid for the recent passing of immortal John Raper, plus fellow Dragon greats Norm Provan and Mark Schulman. Cody Ramsey would have made all three proud.
Then for Ramsey! Big dive! Horizontal, parallel to the ground, he got it down!
The Dragons, nothing like the team that failed to make finals last season. Another Ramsey raid finished by Jack Bird. It wouldn't be a Charity Shield without a bit of biff. The Burgess twins head-to-head lasted barely a minute before Tom was sin-binned. The flick, now a feature from Zach Lomax.
That'll get the fans excited. That was brilliant.
16-10 Dragons, breaking the Bunnies' decade-long dominance of the Shield, but plenty to like from South's Lachlan Ilias, poaching the kicking game of departed captain Adam Reynolds with a rare 20-40.
It's obviously a trial, so it's going to be scrappy in some parts of the game, but I thought overall he played really well.
Sidelined by a hamstring injury, tough viewing for Reynolds as the Cowboys carved up his new club, Brisbane.
Now comes back to Tabuai for Doe, puts a grubber in for himself. What a kick! He gets the bounce, the hammer!
All North Queensland, 26-6, but Reynolds reckons he will captain Brisbane in round one against the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't miss it for the world, mate. It's going to be a packed-out stadium from what I'm hearing, and there'll be a few fireworks on the night there too.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Former Rugby Sevens star Emma Tonagato is off to an electrifying start in the NRLW. The Olympic gold medalist starred for St George Illawarra in their 20-12 win over the Titans in Newcastle this afternoon. The all-conquering Broncos started their quest for a fourth consecutive premiership with a 16-point win over the Roosters.
For Tamika Upton on the inside, Millie Boyle will get there for the Broncos.
With the NRLW's first ever field goal, Maddie Studden broke the deadlock for the Eels to win their first game 13-12 over Newcastle. Tight security for Pat Cummins and his team upon arrival for Australia's historic tour of Pakistan. Buses under police escort arrived from Islamabad Airport at the team hotel carrying the 35-man squad.
You know, before arriving here was not only security but biosecurity, and everyone's done a fantastic job. So we feel like, we're here, we can just concentrate on the cricket.
While the Aussies relax on phones and under masks, 4,000 police have surrounded their team hotel. It is Australia's first visit to the strife-torn cricket-mad country since 1998. Socceroo Matthew Leckie broke Sydney FC's hearts with a stoppage-time winner at Cogra Oval last night. Milos Ninkovic drew the Sky Blues level at 1-1 with Melbourne City in the second half, but Leckie had the final say in the grand final rematch. Adelaide United also scored a stoppage-time winner to defeat Central Coast Mariners 2-1. In the Premier League, Manchester City's lead is back out to 6 points after a controversial 1-0 win at Everton. Fighting to avoid relegation, the Toffees were left fuming at being denied a handball penalty late in the second half.
Strikes him when his arm's not in a natural position. I've got a 3-year-old daughter at home who could tell you that's a penalty.
Cristiano Ronaldo hit the post in Manchester United's scoreless draw with lowly Watford at Old Trafford. Players were booed off the pitch at half-time. Rafael Nadal's best ever start to a year just keeps getting even better. The Australian Open champion extended his winning streak to 15 matches in Mexico. Englishman Cameron Norrie lost his composure in the final against a relentless Nadal. The Spanish superstar won in straight sets.
Rafael Nadal is Mr. Invincible.
Nadal's now both the youngest and oldest winner of the Mexican Open, winning his first title at 18 and fourth at 35. Rafa's 91st ATP title also earned him a nice new sombrero. The Resurgent Kings are on a 5-match NBL winning streak. A buzzer-beating 3-pointer from Xavier Cooks on half-time got Sydney to within 2 points of the Adelaide 36ers. Cooks led all scorers with 25 points, but with scores locked at 90 all in the final seconds, it was import Jalen Adams who came up big.
Adams, is he the man? Step back, 3, heartbreaker!
The former NBA star finished with 24 points, getting the Kings home in a thriller, 93-90. They are now third on the ladder. Fergo, a real nail-biter, that one. The Kings looking good.
Kings on fire.
Yeah.
Right, Mel, thank you.
Thanks.
A real favourite is celebrating a major milestone, 100 years of Cadbury chocolate. What started in a tiny Tasmanian factory has become an Aussie giant, producing 200 million blocks a year.
Jamie Salter has worked at Australia's biggest chocolate factory for 35 of its 100 years.
It was like toilet paper, right? People going for your toilet paper, you see a big growth in chocolate. So a lot of chocolate sales going up.
Wouldn't it be nice if the world was Cadbury? You'll find Cadbury's Chocolate HQ in the northern suburbs of Hobart, close to cow farms that provide the milk. This building's been here longer than almost everyone, and almost everyone here has a connection.
My father's the longest term, he was around 49 years. But most of my family work here. I actually met my wife here.
From the really old days to, well, slightly less old days, fads come and go.
Just in time for Easter, it's a little mini eggs product, which is fantastic.
The most popular product has barely changed.
Cadbury Dairy Milk, the plain old dairy milk. People love it.
Tasmanians eat the most chocolate, 5.1 kilos each a year. That's about 28 blocks. In Victoria and New South Wales, it's a bit less. From this small pocket in Hobart comes 60,000 tonnes of chocolate each year. Most of that consumed in Australia and New Zealand, but some is exported to Japan, Malaysia and Pakistan. This is an Australian story, now more than a century old.
It's great for the community to have a plant like this here in Tasmania.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Now Angie's back with the forecast. Angie, it's a dangerous night ahead for our state.
Mark, the Weather Bureau is warning of life-threatening flash flooding. I'll have all the latest warnings next.
Tonight, 7 News headlines: explosive scenes in the battle for Ukraine. The Russian invasion continues to be met with fierce defence. Australia now preparing to take refugees, as well as fast-tracking visa applications from Ukrainians. And evacuation orders are in place for parts of Lismore, while the search for a missing man will recommence tomorrow as the flood danger crosses the border. And with warnings already in place across the state, here's Angie with the very latest.
Thanks very much, Mark. Immense rainfall totals have been recorded in southeast Queensland. 450 millimetres in Brisbane over the last 2 days, and that system is headed south towards New South Wales. Sydney enjoyed a brief reprieve in the wet weather today, just a few drops here and there, but overall fine under cloudy skies, a top of 26.7 degrees. 26 or 27 was the story for most suburbs, a little bit cooler at Terry Hills, 24, 20 at Katoomba. In terms of rainfall, Manly picked up 3 millimetres today, most other suburbs just 1 or 2 in the gauge. But the latest satellite image shows a low sitting off the southeast Queensland coast here. During tonight and tomorrow, that will track south to northeastern New South Wales. So this is the warning zone at the moment, stretching from the border down to about the mid-north coast, and it will bring heavy rainfall and damaging winds. That rainfall will be intense during tonight and tomorrow, so widespread falls of 80 to 100 millimetres, but localised pockets within embedded storms could lead to falls of 250 millimetres. The Weather Bureau describes that as having the potential to cause life-threatening flash flooding. Around the nation, Brisbane has thankfully seen the worst of it now. Rain easing to just a few showers tomorrow. Showers also for Canberra, Hobart and Adelaide. It'll be an overcast day for Melbourne, a top of 26 degrees. It's an entirely different story on the west coast, sunny and 36 degrees for Perth. A little bit of wet weather continuing through Darwin though. Statewide, heavy showery rain to continue through our northeast. Large and powerful surf to go with that on that stretch of coastline. Showers in other parts of the east and the southwest as well. Temperatures under those clouds at or slightly below average. Sydney will also see the showers return tomorrow, 5 to 10 millimetres likely. There's a chance of a storm. Tops will generally hover around the mid-20s under all that cloud. On the water, east to northeasterly winds at 15 to 20 knots at first, then tending east to southeasterly on a sizable 2.5 metre swell. It is going to be an overcast day in the CBD tomorrow. The showers picking up again as well after that reprieve today, and the forecast top is 25 degrees. To the week ahead, rainfall totals increase again on Tuesday, but the really heavy wet weather will develop through Wednesday and Thursday. We will see an improvement by Friday with a more manageable weekend ahead. At that stage, it's going to be partly cloudy with just a few passing showers likely. But first, it is a big week of weather on the way, Mark.
Yeah, a week to take care, Angie.
Sure is.
Thank you. That is 7 News for this Sunday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.